Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me again today. I am super excited to have with me John Laspina, aka the Carnivore Teacher. And this is a special one because, as I was telling John before we started recording, I have been recording with a bunch of different carnivores on YouTube and having a terrible time really just doing a one on one introductory episode to teach people what the carnivore diet is all about. So I think this is finally going to be the one that we get to do that. So I'm really excited. Thank you for joining me, John.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't we start with just a brief cliff notes of your background, how you became the carnivore teacher? How did that come to be?
Okay. I have a little script here that I prepared so that I sound
Perfect.
articulate and not a lot of ums and uhs. So I'm 58 and a half years old right now. I'm 5 foot. I want to give my specs so people understand how the weight relates to my height, my age.
Yeah.
So I'm 5'10". I'm 165 pounds currently. I'm a retired middle school teacher. I taught for 34 years. I taught language arts and social studies. I taught civics. I taught Microsoft Office applications for industry certifications and business class. And the last 17 years of my career, I taught video production. So get to play with all the equipment like I am now. My parents, my grandparents were born in Sicily, so I have ancestors who are Italian. I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. I graduated Westchester University in Pennsylvania with a degree in a bachelor's degree in elementary education. And while teaching, I received my 30 graduate hours towards my master's at Western Maryland College, which is now called McDaniel College in Westminster, Maryland, in the U.S. I taught at a school in Frederick, Maryland, and for 13 years, and the last 21 years, I taught at a middle school in Coconut Creek, Florida, which is right up the road from where I live here in Boca Raton. So I've been down here since 2001. I love where I live. And about 5 years ago, I decided yet another diet to try to lose weight. And all the diets I tried before that worked until they stopped working. And I put the weight back on and I put more weight on. That's how they always tended to work. So I never heard of keto. Figure, well, let me try this one. And I didn't know anything, knew
Where were
nothing.
you at that time in terms of like weight?
I was around 198, almost 200 pounds. I was
Okay.
35, almost 40 pounds overweight, almost a 38-inch waist for my
Hmm.
5'10" frame. Um, you take off, you get dressed in the morning, you look in the mirror and you don't want to look. You don't look the way you looked in your 20s, right? So I was in my
And I
low,
think a lot of people can relate to this because you
yeah,
weren't like massive, but you just see yourself and you just think,
right.
I can be better, like I know I can
Yeah.
do better than this. I want to look awesome and feel amazing. So,
Exactly. And
yeah.
I knew the way I used to look. But you start to hear the message that, oh, you're in your 50s, you're approaching 60, you're supposed to get heavy. Everybody you see who's that age is that heavy, and they sit in the chair and they don't exercise as much. And you get gray and you get aches and pains, and you hear them. It's just ingrained in us that we're supposed to settle in when we hit 50s and 60s. So, 5 years ago, I was 53, 54 years old. And, I realized, let me try this. And this was different. I started out, you want me to start to explain how I did this?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
First, I started with an app on my phone that just tracks and measures your macronutrients. I didn't know what keto was. So keto said you have to have, moderate protein, a very high amount of healthy fat, and very, very low carbohydrates, less than 20 total grams a day. And how do you know that? You type in your food and it tells you, and it makes a pie chart, and you can kind of track where you are and adjust it. And here are the foods you can eat. I watched a guy on YouTube who stood at a whiteboard and he said, this is what you can eat. This is what you shouldn't eat. This has carbs. This is, stay away from these seed oils. And I didn't know any of that. All I knew from the past diets was calories in, calories out, eat less, restrict, exercise your butt off, forever, which I did. I was always a gym guy. And it wasn't working anymore. So this was different. And within a few weeks, I noticed my weight was dropping very rapidly. And
And was
within,
this like I know that keto is kind of vague. So what exactly were you eating during that time?
so When I started the keto diet, I was eating all animal products and vegetables and a small handful of berries and nuts and seeds, but the low
Okay.
carb nuts. And I thought, I can do this. I like this. I can do this. And I did it. And it worked very well for 1 year. I was I felt like I was 25 again. Okay. And then I got a kidney stone and I had to go to the
Ooh.
hospital. And after going through that gut wrenching, excruciating experience, I passed the stone. It came out in the toilet and I saw it come out. I'm like, oh my gosh, there it is. So I get the tweezer, washed it off. I saved it and I took it in. I had it analyzed and they told me it was a calcium oxalate kidney stone. I
Mm.
didn't know what that was. So I went
Mm-hmm.
home, I Googled it. I learned all about oxalates and I said, okay, I need to refine this diet. I'm going to take out all these plants that are very high in oxalate that I didn't realize I was eating. I was eating a lot of dark chocolate sweetened with monk fruit because it was low carb. I was having a lot of salads with a lot of spinach. I would sprinkle chia seeds on everything because it was supposed to be good for the gut. You know, things you hear, but I never heard the message that these have anti-nutrients. So with that part of my journey, I took out most of the plants and all I was eating was avocado, coffee, maybe asparagus and broccoli sometimes for dinner, and everything else was animal meat. And I did that for 3 years and I felt like an even better fine tuning of my metabolism. I felt even
Another
better.
step up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I understood what oxalate dumping was. And as these years progressed, I'm watching more and more Dr. Chafee, I'm watching Dr. Baker, Dr. Berry, and I'm learning things I wish I knew when I was eating the oxalates. So, the longer you research and learn, I believe that knowledge is power. So just, educate as a teacher. And I applied little bits of aha moments to my life. Like, oh, I never realized that. Let me change this today. And I made a major change one day. Then I heard something else on the internet. Like, you shouldn't be cooking in nonstick cookware because that Teflon eventually does come off into the food and it's like a bisphenol A. It's like the plastics. And I'm like, oh, I better change that. So every once in a while, I applied something new and changed my life. I changed the type of water I drink. We can go into that. And just there's so many changes. I would be on here for 4 hours with you, just going through the changes
It's such a fun game, just like
it
removing the
is.
toxins from your life. I went through a similar one. For me, I'd say I think the first one that I really started thinking about was 2022-ish. And I saw so many people talking about seed oils
Oh
on the
yeah.
internet. So I was like, interesting, and learned more and more. I was like, all right, like I'm convinced I should get this stuff out. So started cutting those out. And like that, I realized I wasn't sunburning anymore when I went
Yeah. Isn't that
outside.
amazing? Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that's weird. And like I just felt more energized and had more focus. I'm like, okay, there's something here. And then I got rid of all the non-stick and the plastic cooking utensils, like you said, replaced it all with stainless steel and wood. And I, felt a little bit better. And not only did I just physically probably feel a little better, but mentally I felt better. Like I'm
Oh yeah.
getting cleaner and like more healthy from this. This
Yeah.
is great. And like it just got me energized to like tell more people about it and start ranting on the Instagram stories to tell people to take these things out too. Because why wouldn't you want to be the healthiest you can be and just continuing
That's why
down
I
the
made,
rabbit hole?
yeah, it's why
Yeah.
I made my YouTube channel. I'm like, I
Hmm.
can't keep my mouth shut on this one. I
Yeah.
just can't.
Yeah.
This is about life and health and emotional health and physical health. I'm retired. Well, I became keto and ketovore while I was teaching. And, I learned that, you can't be an evangelical with this because just like evangelicalism, people don't want to hear you. People don't want to hear your message. So people have to be ready to hear the message, and they come to you and say, "I've noticed a change in you. You look better. You look thinner. You lost weight." And then they'll ask, and then there's your open door to talk. So instead of waiting for that, which doesn't happen too often, I've noticed my friends and family are not. They knew me before, and they knew all the little things I used to go through. So I noticed other people will listen. So I made a YouTube channel. I started growing that, and I'm reaching people and making a difference. And they're telling me by their comments that, oh my gosh, I'm going to do that now. And that's how I learned, by listening to other people too. So, it's my way of paying it forward because I really believe that, everything I got from this way of eating is like priceless. It's my wealth. It is my wealth and my portfolio. And I have so much of it. Why can't you have it too? All it is knowledge.
Spread the
It's
love. Yeah.
just knowledge. Spread the knowledge. Person can choose to take it or not. But, I took it and I feel like, you can't pay money to feel this way. You can't, the richest, most billionaire person in the world, if they're not healthy, they're miserable,
And you see that quite often, actually. Some of the richest
you
people
do.
out there just let their health go away. And it's like, why would you do that? You have all the resources imaginable, and like, you can't really enjoy it if you're not fully healthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so I love sort of using that track that we were on earlier of how when we get into this health rabbit hole, we just start picking off things one at a time that are not serving us, like the seed oils and the nonstick pans and the polyester clothing was another one I did.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for women, getting rid of all the terrible makeup, using like more tallow balm, like just all these different things. Um, Eventually, you're going to look at diet really closely, and that's what happened to me is, and that's the one that we often kick the can on for a long time because we have a very emotional connection to our food.
We do.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
It's like, religion, politics, and food are the things you don't want to talk about at the dinner table because people just get very emotional about these things. Um, so personally, the path that I sort of took was not too long after that seed oil removal in the nonstick and whatnot. I realized, okay, like processed food is absolutely out because every processed food has seed oils in it.
Right.
It's terrible for your body. That's easy. And soon after that, I'm like, grains are not looking good either. Like I had pasta every once in a while. I had the
Yeah.
whole grain pasta because I thought
Oh,
it was
it's
better.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just realized, nah, this is not good. And so I got rid of that too. And like you said, each time I take these things out, I get a little bit better. And it's just like you're removing the toxins, as we talked about. And then I got to the animal based, which there's like a huge, class of people on the interwebs with the health influencer accounts that are saying that vegetables are not that great and meat and fruit is the best. And so I was like, all right, that sounds crazy, but like I don't really like vegetables that much. Like, who does? Let's be
Right.
honest. And so I got rid of those and I ate just meat and fruit for about 6 months and I felt even better. So I'm like, wow, this is really fascinating. Like, it seems like all these things I've been told were good, I just remove them and they make me feel better. And then, and this is the hardest one, is I think for most people getting rid of the fruit is like,
Fruit.
no,
It's
no.
sweet. Yeah.
It tastes so delicious. It comes
Yeah.
from a tree. It has to be good for you, and it just tastes so good. It's so hard to get rid of. And I finally, how did I found Anthony Chaffee's podcast. Started
Plants are
episode
trying
one.
to kill you.
Plants are trying to kill you. I started on episode one and
Yeah.
just spent a few months listening to every single episode of that.
Oh,
Because when I
yeah.
want to learn something, I become obsessed.
You
So
like me.
yeah, yeah. I listened to every single episode of that, and I came out the other side like, holy shit. Maybe the fruit needs to go too if I
Yeah.
really want to reach optimal. I think that like all the sort of animal based crowd is sort of not quite there yet. That there's a little, who knows why. It could be a little bit of like personal sugar addiction that they're trying to like rationalize. They just have to happen to have a large audience, or maybe they just don't really understand the the full history of the agricultural revolution and how
Right
frank and
there.
foody these
Yeah. The
new fruits
history.
are.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And how the fruits are changed, have been
Hmm.
changed. And they're larger and sweeter, and they're genetically modified to resist the glyphosate that they're having to spray on it anyway. I mean, if
Hmm.
this was ancient fruit and we had a little bit of it only when it was in season in the geographical area where we live, that's actually okay. Because what are you having? It's not that sweet, it's not that big, and it's not that much time in the month. That's how our ancestors ate fruit. It's
Yeah.
not in rows and rows of it in the grocery store, and every single week you fill your cart with bananas and apples and oranges.
And not only was it much less sweet as we've hybridized it to be man-madely,
Uh-huh.
is that word man-madely? Uh,
It is now. You
these
just made it.
the
Adverb.
they were much more bitter and tart,
Yeah,
like back in the day. So they actually gave us a correct signal of don't eat this.
right. Or only
And
eat a little
even
bit. Yeah.
and on top of that, they were, like you said, seasonally, they were only available in like 2 or 3 weeks at the end of fall before
Of a
winter.
of a
Is
whole entire year.
Yeah.
Right.
And so these were basically just there and just as a way to put on some fat for hibernation for the fruit eating animals, which we arguably never were.
Right.
But sometimes we use that as a starvation food if we failed our hunt and needed just a little bit of nutrients to hold us over, and we'd have to just take through the consequences of having some plant toxins. So
Yeah.
very interesting stuff. I mean, we're kind of going off the rails already here, but just for me, that was the most difficult one. But once I removed that fruit to finish up my story, I was in Colombia at the time, backpacking with a buddy, and so the steak was real cheap. I'm like, screw it, let's try it out. Took the last bit of fruit out, been 100% carnivore ever since, maybe 99%. But completely anchored on this way of eating. I think that carnivore diet is the optimal human diet. This is the end of the diet rabbit hole, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because you
We're
get
at the
rid of
bottom.
every
Yeah.
single one of
Yeah.
those toxins. And because every single one of those things we talked about, the processed food is the easiest to declare. Of course, that's toxic. It's all toxins. The vegetables have the defense chemicals in them because
Anti-nutrients. Right.
the anti-nutrients, like the oxalates you talked about, like the
Phytates, lectins, all that.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm and then the fruit is full of fructose, and it's really just like the
And
plants.
oxalate and
Yeah,
lectins, and
yeah,
depending
true.
on the fruit. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
And so it's not going to kill you if you eat fruit every once in a while, but it's a net negative for your body, straight up.
And
And
it's
people
addictive.
continue.
We
Yes.
like sweet things, and we
hmm
get a dopamine hit in the brain when the fructose part of sugar that's sweet turns that switch on. And for some people, maybe, I think it sounds like you, I know it's me. I'm a sugar addict. I'm a sweet addict. I can't even do the sugar substitutes that don't raise my glycemic index because it's turning on that, oh, I want more in my brain. Gotta have it. So there's something
Yep.
to fructose,
Yep.
or sweetness.
And
Yeah.
since humans are so good at, we've now reached a point where scientists are figuring out that bliss point in
Yeah,
people's brains where they can hit by designing these foods to hit that. So, I mean,
absolutely.
for the processed foods, it's easy. They just, well, not easy, but they literally lab create it to hit that. But even the thousands of years of agricultural revolution in farming, the farmers themselves have actually like changed the fruit over thousands of years to also hit that and make people like it. So crazy stuff.
Crazy.
Um, why don't we pivot a bit here and just
All right.
start asking the questions that I know most people have, because I had them myself not too long ago
Sure.
when looking at this diet. So for the carnivore diet, I think the first question people would ask is, man, fruits and vegetables, they have all these vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants and flavonoids, and insert buzzword here with something you've read in a magazine, which is like makes this thing so healthy and like good for you for some way. Why is that irrelevant? Or what are your thoughts on that in general, I guess?
When people talk about the flavonoids and the antioxidants and the vitamin C and this, that, or the other thing, it's true. They have them, but they're telling an incomplete story by leaving out the other side of the story, the anti-nutrients and the antioxidants, which often either nullify the positive effects of those good things, but sometimes they overcome them and they're worse, and they make eating something that has a flavonoid or an antioxidant so much worse because of the other anti-nutrients in there. And I hear that all the time. Those are the arguments I have on Twitter and sometimes Facebook with people when they want to talk about something that I stated, and they're arguing with me, but they're leaving out the other side, the other half of the story. And a lot of people don't ever want to talk about that, or honestly, I don't think they know, because I didn't know. So people need to hear the whole story about a supposedly beneficial food that's usually a plant. People talk about all the great things about coffee. so they can get at their coffee. Gotta have my coffee's good for you. It has flavonoids. It's caffeine's good for the, all the benefits. And then they stop there. And then it's almost like a commercial to continue to drink coffee. And they're not discussing the thousands of chemicals that are poisonous in coffee, that we used to use coffee beans as an insecticide, that it causes vasodilation after it's been restricted in your head. If you stop, you get these awful, awful headaches. It adjusts your bowel movements. I mean, what's it doing to you? But nobody talks about that, right? So that's
because
my
they want
answer.
to convince themselves that it's okay. They find the people that say it's good for you, and they really latch onto that. And I see that in every single one of those levels of, removing the vegetables, removing the fruit. There's always like a lagging crew that's like, no, it can't be bad for you because look at this like influencer with a lot of followers that's telling me it's okay.
Right. And there's some of these influencers I have such great deep respect for, and I've learned other amazing things from them. And then they go ahead and say this thing, and I'm like, Dr. Berg, come on, man. He does a lot of those. He's such a cool guy. I met him in person, but he does these little, apple cider vinegar and garlic and all these other little things. If you just do this a day, it's going to improve that. But doesn't talk about the benefit, the detriments to this thing. So, everything always defaults back to carnivore for me, bottom of the rabbit hole, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to go a little further and dig some roots in that rabbit hole, you can talk about grass finished instead of grass fed, which is a tiny little bit better because of the rumen. We could go there.
Yeah. I mean, talk about the seed oil people, the people, like a lot of the people that convinced me seed oils are bad, and I have tremendous gratitude for them. A lot of them are still stuck on that level that you need fruit and honey on every meal.
Saladino, right?
Yeah.
Paul. I learned so much from Paul Saladino too, Dr. Saladino. I used to watch his videos. I stopped because he kept talking about fruit and honey in Costa Rica, and it's low. I'm like, dude, I don't live in Costa Rica. I don't have trees everywhere to pick the fruit, and I shouldn't be eating it 24/7. So you have to pick
the things from every person, because everyone out there has something to offer that they say correctly, but it's so hard to find people that are right about absolutely everything. I mean, it's basically impossible, right? We're all wrong about things. I was going to say
that you have to be an educated consumer of information, use your gut instinct, and your knowledge of your own body and what works for you. I made a statement once on Twitter recently that it doesn't matter what a study says, an amazing study. If it doesn't match up with what I'm experiencing and feeling in my own body and having success, that study's null and void if it doesn't work in me. And, I feel this way about what people say to you. You have to find your own, what works for me doesn't work for you, necessarily. So everybody has a different biology, working with that as well.
Yeah. And just to wrap up that answer there, antioxidants is my favorite one ever, because it's in the freaking word that it's like the anti of the oxidant. And what provides that oxidative stress? It's the plants.
Right.
So if you remove the source of oxidation, which is the plants, you don't need the antioxidants.
Right.
It's like a loop.
Right.
Which is why when you remove it all together, you just feel better.
And vitamin C, I don't know if you know, is an antioxidant, right?
Let's actually, that was going to be my next question, because vitamin C is a specific one. Yeah.
If your body has a little bit too much, your body only needs a tiny bit, especially if you have no sugar and carbs. Your body, because the sugar molecule and the vitamin C molecule are very similar. And if you've got both in the body, it's going to take up the sugar first and then the vitamin C. So if you've got your carbs and sugar out of your system and you're eating this way, you don't need very much vitamin C at all, because whatever you have, your body's taking in. But if you have a little too much, you ready for this? Vitamin C oxidizes into oxalate. So you now have that anti-nutrient that you were petrified from spinach. Vitamin C turned into it because you kept I was taking all these supplements, years ago. I'm like, I got to get vitamin C. I'm a school teacher. The kids are going to get me sick. Zinc, vitamin C. I was popping
the emergency box. That's the one I had those little like tubes of powder on my mouth.
So much of it, and I didn't know that it converted into oxalate. Knowledge is power, man. You gotta keep learning.
Yeah. And you're not going to get scurvy. I've never heard of a carnivore getting scurvy. That one is still being thrown out there.
Modern world, there's a tiny bit of vitamin C in meat. There's vitamins. There's a lot in organ meat. I eat cod liver a couple times a
Hmm.
week in cans. To me, it's like pate. It's absolutely delicious because I don't
Hmm.
like beef liver. But there are people that don't have any organ meat at all, and they've been
That's
carnivore
me.
for
I've
many
never touched it.
years.
I haven't touched
There
it
you
yet.
go. And you would know if you have scurvy. I think the
Hmm.
first sign is your fingernails. You know,
It's a nasty problem. Like it would not be a mystery.
you would
Um,
know. You would
yeah,
know.
yeah. But yeah, I'm an example of someone I haven't touched any organ meats. If someone offers one to me, like at some point, or if I find them somewhere,
You'll
maybe I'll try
try
it.
it.
But I'm not
Yeah.
seeking it out.
Yeah.
Like
I don't care
I'm
for it
kind of a
usually.
picky eater, so it just
Yeah.
kind of sounds nasty to me. So
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why I need to. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's funny we actually mentioned that. I think that um, though a lot of those influencers we're talking about that ended up having to add fruit back in or sugar or carbs for some reason, they say like, oh, that I had some weird testosterone thing or some hormonal thing. I What I believe, and I think Chafee has talked about this, is that they had too many organs. They had too
Yeah.
many of a type of organ, and they just like oversaturated their body with
Vitamin A.
hypervitaminosis,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so they threw their body out of whack. And it's not normal for someone to just pound beef liver every single day in big quantities, and that can cause problems. Some
Absolutely.
people just don't
He
understand that there's a
explains,
balance
yeah,
there.
how much of the animal that you have, the size of that animal, how much of that animal is liver, and it's this little percentage. So if you have a little percentage within all of the food that you eat that represents the percentage of the animal in proportion, that's the acceptable amount of organ meat that you can have or should have. You can't be doing like Saladino did, and he was just eating tons and tons and tons of liver. And I think he had a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, but I I'm I don't think I'm ever going to have a large amount of organs unless I find out that one of them really gives me a specific benefit at some point. I might experiment. Why not? But
But you won't have too much. You'll have
I like my steak. I don't need to
a
eat
portion.
freaking
What's your favorite steak?
testicles or any weird shit.
Yeah,
Like, I have no need for that. Oh, I mean, ribeye is my favorite. New York
ribeyes.
is good.
Everybody defaults to that.
It's so
It's
dang
the
expensive though.
flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. It depends. If you can, I found the eye of round is like
Hmm.
the poor man's ribeye. You get an eye of
Okay.
round that's real fatty, and it's like half the price of a ribeye. And my
Nice.
supermarket sometimes has it. I tried it because I saw it on Bearded Butchers. Have you ever seen these guys?
I
They're
haven't.
really, oh,
No.
you got to look up Bearded Butchers. These two twin
Okay.
brothers with these gigantic beards. That's their shtick, and they cut up an entire cow, and they mark out on a big table with tape the shape of the cow, and they
Oh,
take the
I
meat
think
and
I
they
might have
put
seen
it,
this.
yeah, they put every piece of meat where it came from in the cow. It's like an education. It's like, that's where my ribeye comes
Mm,
from. I
okay.
didn't know that. So anyway,
Yeah.
I learned from them that you get this eye of round. It's so much cheaper and it tastes just as good as ribeye. So check that out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And another pro tip for broke MFers like me, just ground beef is going to be your
Oh,
best friend.
heck,
I
it's
buy
delicious as hell.
big
Yeah.
bulk packs of ground beef, and I pretty much just have those almost every day right now. I
And I like
have
that
like
with
steak every
egg
once in a while.
yolks. You break an egg yolk
Mm.
in the middle of it, and it starts to, it's not completely raw, but it's cheesy sauce type of texture. And then put just the right
Yeah.
amount of salt. I could eat that for the rest of my life and be
Yeah.
satisfied.
And
Yeah.
here's the thing, people, like to listeners thinking like, man, actually, I'll turn this into a question.
Go
Don't
ahead.
you get bored of eating the same thing every day, John?
I hear that all the time. All right. I eat beef, all cuts of beef, many cuts of beef, many cuts of lamb. Lamb loins are my favorite. Pork, bacon, so many cuts of pork, beef, lamb, pork, poultry, chicken, turkey, duck, pheasant, quail. So many, not just hen eggs. I have access to duck eggs. If you've never had them, they're amazing. The quail eggs, you got to break a lot of them, but they're good. If you're okay with dairy, hard cheeses, there's so many, butter, beef tallow, beef lard, bacon fat, chicken schmaltz. There's so many. I'm not tired at all. Believe me, I mix it up within that family of carnivore meats I just mentioned. I am no way. I don't just eat ground beef every night. And if I did, I honestly, the reason I wouldn't get tired of it is because the fat satiates me. and you don't want to eat any more when you're full, when you're satisfied. And when it's time to eat again and you get true hunger signals, it looks good again, right? If it's just ground beef, it looks good again. But mine isn't just ground beef. I eat all those things mixed up throughout the week, and fish, lots of seafood. I love seafood. I buy a giant bag of wild caught shrimp, sockeye salmon. I have a little bit sometimes with my meals. We make ribs on the grill, smoke ribs. They cook them for 6 hours. I watched a YouTube video on how to do it. No way do I get tired eating this food.
I'm really glad that that's your answer, because I have a completely different answer.
All right, let's hear your...
we can give people some very different perspectives here. Because for me, I don't need all that variety.
right.
I don't really like seafood that much. I'm just kind of picky in general, and I just like my ground beef and my steak. And
good enough.
Of course, early on in this journey, like those first few weeks, you're kind of lugging through it like, oh, steak again. Like, I'm tired of steak. But what's happening in your brain is that your satiety signals are changing.
Right.
And it gets easier after that. So
right.
you're getting rid of that carb and sugar addiction takes time. And some
Mhm.
people it can take months or even years. But for myself and most people, the hardest part is those first few weeks to a month. And it's funny because my friend that I was traveling with in Colombia, as I told you, he was craving a sugar. He wanted a can of soda. He was really just wanting some Coke, and I've never really craved that. I was craving a big bowl of mac and cheese. That's my weakness.
Same
So
thing.
like everyone has their different sort of food drug that has a really deep seating in their brain.
Right.
But over time, as you push through that addiction, just like any other addiction, those things fade away. And all of a sudden I found like every single day I'm craving meat. Like I really am excited to eat this meat. And another step people can take, which I do myself right now, actually, I'm doing this, is just doing one meal a day of just a whole bunch of meat.
OMAD. Okay.
And something that does for me is that I'm always stoked to eat it because it's been a full 24 hours since I've eaten. It's like a true intermittent fasting. And if I, eat twice a day, there's a little bit of that excitement to eat the thing and just like mouth watering, like salivating for your meal, So it's a good way to sort of trick yourself into enjoying it that much more.
True.
And so, yeah, I mean, I pretty much have 2 pounds of ground beef every single day right now. I've been doing that for several weeks now, and I am always excited to eat it. I'm never wishing I was eating some pizza or something anymore.
Have you heard of Kelly Hogan?
Of course.
She did that for a long time. I don't know if she still does it. It was just ground beef for her for years. She's been a carnivore for 10 years, lost a ton of weight, and all these other major medical problems. And she's not tired of it either. So
she
people
had like boils and all kinds of skin issues.
She had horrible stomach problems. A lot of people think because of their cereal and all that stuff in the center of the grocery store with the variety that they've had all their life, just mentally thinking, I don't get access to that anymore. And all I have to do is eat meat. I know I'll be tired of it. Mentally, you think so. I would see how that's a logical thought until you try it and you realize it's a satiety signal. You don't want it anymore. Your neurons that used to enjoy those things eventually shrivel up because you're nourishing yourself, and the body loves to be nourished. We have 77 hormones in our body, and they all become, most people are out of balance. We become very balanced, and that changes our emotions. It changes when, what we like, what satisfies us. And it also helps people who are trying to quit bad habits, believe it or not, because you now have the mental power, your brain's feeding off of ketones, and people who had issues with gambling or issues with smoking or something, they can quit like that when they're eating, when they've nourished their body. Their body isn't looking for something else to get a release because their body's feeling fantastic. So there's so many benefits. I'm so happy to be on to tell you again. I mean, I talk to a lot of people about this, and I never get tired of talking about it because it's just amazing.
Same. Yeah.
I want to have a real commercial on television instead of those horrible commercials you see for all the medicines and the vegetable pill capsules. And
it's crazy.
People need to hear the truth.
One of the things you mentioned in there is a great segue, you talked about how you're powered by ketones. Could you
Hmm.
talk to us a little bit about this? Because I think that most people believe that protein equals muscles and carbohydrates equal energy, and
Right.
fat is just this terrible substance of the devil that makes you explode when you touch it. So they just think of carbs as the energy thing,
Right.
and they've never heard of ketosis or ketones. So
Right. Either did I. Yeah.
what is ketosis? Can you kind of tell us what
Okay.
that is and compare it to carbohydrate energy?
All our lives, we have heard the message, or we believe fat makes us fat, and sugar gives us energy, carbs fuel our energy. And it's been decades and decades of learning with the food pyramid, with all the bread at the bottom, and the my plate. And we're not hearing the correct information. And once you start learning what does the body look for? The body doesn't see calories, which is a heat burning measure that man invented. The body is looking for and recognizes protein, which comes from 22 amino acids. Some people say 24. So there's these essential amino acids we must get in the food we eat, and they're all present in a healthy balance in animal products. That gives you a complete protein. What does protein do? It helps build our muscles and our bones and keeps us strong. And then we need healthy fat, which goes against everything we learned because we thought fat was bad. Everything on all the messages, low fat, low fat, low fat. We need healthy fatty acids, and they come in omega-3, omega-6, omega-7, and omega-9 fatty acids. Omega-3 and 6 are 100% essential, which means essential means we have to get it in the food we eat. And not only do we have to get 3 and 6, they have to be in the correct ratio. In the standard American diet, you're getting 1 omega-3 to 25 omega-6s because of all the seed oil and all the grains. That's inappropriate inflammation and oxidative stress for the body, and it causes medical problems. When we eat the proper human diet, which is animal products, you're getting a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 or a 1-to-3 omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. And in those fatty acids are vitamins A, D, E, and K, minerals. There's nutrition in the fat. The message before was fat's just fat and there's no nutrition. We thought it was just separate. So much nutrition is in the fat. And then the third macronutrient is carbohydrates. And what's interesting is that's not essential because our liver, this, creates a level teaspoon of glucose on demand. When the body needs it, the liver pumps out just that amount and no more to, nourish our red blood cells and parts of our optic nerve and a couple of other places that the body has to have. We have to have glucose, all right, or else we'll go hypoglycemic and we'll die. So the body knows this. And homeostasis, it pumps out just the amount. When we eat an apple, we're now way above that 4 grams. When we eat sugar and carbs and wheat and starch, which turns into sugar, we are way above that 4 little grams that our liver pumped out. And that's where the problem comes when people do that repeatedly over and over again. So when you eliminate that and the sugar is leveled off in your body, the glucose is just 4 grams of glucose constantly that your liver provides. You're getting protein and fatty acids in a healthy ratio. Then those fatty acids, okay, they turn into ketones. And ketone is a fuel source similar to glucose. It's another fuel source. It's an alternate fuel source. It's the fuel source that babies feed off of in their mother's womb, okay, and when they drink their mother's milk.
And humans have been living on their entire
of
existence
exactly.
until just the last couple thousand years.
So we're doing this now by eating this way, by eliminating the carbs and sugar and eating fatty acids. We are living off of ketones. The brain thrives on ketones. The heart pumps stronger on ketones. The mitochondria, which are the little powerhouses of energy in each of our cells, they run efficiently on ketones. They switch over from glucose to ketones. So ketones, I'm not a pro at it, but man, they are the difference in giving people emotional health and physical health in the absence of glucose. Now, we run on both. We do. There are days when you wake up with the dawn phenomenon, your body pumps out a little more glucose than 4 milligrams, and cortisol and epinephrine from your adrenal glands. That happens to every mammal on the planet Earth. We all have higher glucose in the morning to wake us up and to start our day. And then as the day progresses, it levels off if you don't feed it more sugar, the body, and your ketones take over, and they're powerhouse of energy. You know, athletes are starting to rave about how limitless this energy is. They never get tired. So I probably left a million things out, but that's my understanding of ketones.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a couple of things that I took note of here. One of them is how it's really recycling the dead cells and creating new ones much more efficiently. That's called autophagy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I talked to Anthony Chafee about that as well, how as long as you're in ketosis, that is running at full bore. You're getting this great cleansing effect of new cells coming through. And all the people out there that have been eating carbs their whole life have never experienced this, because you don't experience that until you eliminate the carb poison, because it's preventing that from happening. So
exactly. Yeah.
And this is another reason. And funny story, actually, I experimented with fasting recently. I did my first ever extended fast a couple weeks ago, and I did 5 days.
Ooh.
And I'll be honest, I was unimpressed. I just felt like the exact same, but I was a little bit hungry. And I was like, my prediction, my thought is, the reason why we hear so many reports of these people having these amazing, like, life-altering experiences, they're super focused and energized and just feeling amazing from fasting, I think those are just carb eaters that just stopped eating carbs for a few days and they felt ketosis for the first time.
Maybe, yeah, that could be.
So that's kind of my prediction.
That's how you can get into ketosis faster, is do a long-term fast, and then you can jump into it fast.
And Dr. Chafee also talks about this, how fasting isn't necessary if you're just eating meat, because you're always going to be there.
We all intermittently fast. You know, we don't eat. Fasting is not eating. I should say, like,
extended multi-day fasting isn't really necessary.
Yeah, the longest I've done was 4 days, and what it does do for me, what it did for me, maybe, I don't know if it did this for you or not, but what that did is it makes my mind focus differently on what the purpose of food is. You know, food is for nutrition. If you're if you're taking a long trip and you start running out of gas, it's an inconvenience. You have to stop at the gas station and fill up before you can finish your trip. You know, food should be just like going to the gas station. I need to fuel my body. That's the purpose of food, and the real purpose of food. Of course, we use it for holidays and celebrations and all that other stuff, and we can get into that later. But when I fasted long term, I did a few of them. That's what I noticed. I was knocked into the real purpose of eating, instead of even though I was eating properly. You know, I was looking at my watch. It's time to eat. It's 6 o'clock. I have to eat at 6 o'clock. And I was hungry, but it was connected to the time on the clock. Yes. So long-term fasting separates that, and you go about your day and you think about other things. So I don't do them anymore. The last long-term one I did was maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, and I don't feel the need to do it anymore. But again, it will ramp up your autophagy even more. Like there's a little timeline. It does other things. It ramps up your human growth hormone.
I definitely believe that there have to be some benefits to just not stuffing anything in your digestive system for a little while. You know,
give it a rest.
I'm plenty open to learning more about that. I need to study it more, basically, to see if it's worth doing again in the future.
Jason Fung, I'm sure you've heard of him. Yeah. Watch a couple of his videos. And he's a really good guy on that. And how to break the fast is more important than the long-term fast itself. A lot of people overeat and they eat the wrong stuff, the first food they eat, and they just screw up their whole long-term fast by the first thing they put in their mouth. So there's a thing behind it. But anybody wants to look into it, Jason Fung, Fung. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, great discussion there. To wrap up that point, I would say so back to the protein, the fat, and the carbohydrates. Essential nutrients are things that your body can't make itself, and your body automatically makes all the sugar it needs through gluconeogenesis. I'm not sure if we even use that word, but
Yeah.
it's basically
Gluconeogenesis.
just
Yeah.
cycling through, what is it, like 1 teaspoon worth of sugar or
It's a
something?
level teaspoon of glucose. And a lot of
Hmm.
people don't know what sugar is, that sugar is 50% glucose, 50% fructose. The 50% glucose, the pancreas deals with, and the 50% fructose, the liver deals with. And that's another rabbit hole we could jump down with the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease with all the fructose and the high fructose corn syrup drinks and foods and fruits. And so, and honey has a different ratio of fructose and glucose. Milk products are galactose and glucose. There's no fructose in dairy. That's why it doesn't really taste sweet. The fructose part of sugar is what makes it sweet. And that's the
Hmm.
addictive part, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because
The
when
worst
I
part is the most
eat
addictive.
some white rice or whatever, I'm not going, oh wow, this is so good, because it's not sweet, right? But you give me a little tiny dab of honey, and you're like, oh my god, fructose.
And that there's some genetic variation there, because like for me, like I said, like I wasn't too ravenous for the sugary sweets. Like
You
for me,
weren't, all
I
right,
like
yeah,
those carbs. I like the bread and the rice, and
all
I
right,
had so much freaking rice back when I was like cooking food for myself like a few years ago, and I would have like some teriyaki and just a mountain of white rice, and I just love stuffing my face with that stuff.
yeah, it's fills you, and it's the texture too. Because I remember
Yeah,
I liked
yeah.
basmati rice better than
Hmm.
this rice or that rice because it had this little texture to it, and
Yeah.
the short brown rice. And what the average Joe doesn't really know in America or in the world, wherever you are, is that rice, bread, potatoes, root vegetables, this all is what's called a starch. And what is a starch? It's a long string of glucose molecules. And as soon as the amylase uh, enzyme, I think that's the name of it, in your saliva, it breaks that bond, and it's sugar, just like that. And then as soon
Yeah.
as it goes down your stomach, that's sugar so fast.
And
And
that will
it's
spike your blood
amazing.
sugar like you talked
Absolutely.
about, and your body is saying like, what the hell, I have the perfect amount of sugar right now from gluconeogenesis, you're just stuffing all this extra stuff in here that's throwing me out of whack.
More,
And so
exactly. It's more.
so and this is why we say, like, if you eat an apple, is it going to kill you? Obviously not
No,
immediately, but this is damaging your body in that way, because it's throwing off the natural flow of your blood flow and everything else. And this is what causes problems after a long amount of time, which is why
absolutely.
the world is more diseased now than ever before, when we just so happen to start eating way more fruits and vegetables and grains in the last century only.
Yeah, about
Um,
100, 150 years. It all started with the Industrial Revolution, transportation, refrigeration. The big conglomerate stores started to form. You ever seen the
mhm.
show on TV, The Food That Built America?
No, I
It's on
haven't.
the History Channel. I'm glued to it, and it's fascinating. And it doesn't come from our angle; it just comes from a neutral angle of this is how McDonald's started. This is how Hershey started. And you look, and they all come together. The different stories of how the food we have today became what it is today, and we didn't have it before a certain point in time in the 1800s. We ate, you hunted, you fished. That's what you ate, and it changed, and everybody's diet changed. I wonder what our species is going to look like a few generations from now. I mean, I think I'm starting to see, if you look in crowds of people, we don't look the way we looked in the 1970s in crowds of people. I'm seeing the changes in my own lifetime from this poor diet. It's
And I
scary.
can tell you, this is a global problem, because I've
It
been
is.
traveling in South America and Mexico recently, and you can absolutely see it. Just the other day, I'm in Mexico right now,
Yeah.
and I was at the gym, and my gym has like a big window wall, so you can kind of, when I'm taking a break between sets, I'm just kind of gazing out the window, and I see this group of young, like kids, basically on the sidewalk covering themselves with sunscreen, and these are like full dark skinned Mexicans, like needing to
Mexican kid.
throw
Wow.
sunscreen on, and they
Yeah.
have like bags of potato chips and like energy
Yeah.
drinks at their side. So they're filling themselves with the seed oils that make their skin burn,
But they don't
and
know.
then adding more
Yeah.
chemicals
Yeah.
on
They
top
don't know.
that all go straight into your skin. And
Yeah.
like there's just so many layers to bullshit out there that
I
just
know.
is keeping people
But
confused.
knowledge is power, and that's the thing. The message isn't out there. The message that is out there is you must put sunscreen on. Melanoma, carcinoma, you have to cover your skin. It's bad, and they're not hearing the other message. What's causing our faulty skin cells? It's vegetable seed sterols, and the oils themselves are, they're bad by the way they're made. And so when our skin cells all flake off and we make new skin cells constantly every day, they're being made from a substrate that you eat. And if you're only eating fried foods and peanut oil, French fries, potato chips, Doritos, foods with all the fast food, that's what's making your skin cells. And that's going to cause a burn and cancer. Yeah.
Yeah, humans did not sunburn for like 99.999% of our history.
Yeah.
This is a new phenomenon.
I know.
And what a miracle. We just happen to have drug companies that have just the thing
Isn't
for
that
that they can
amazing?
sell
There
us.
you go.
Amazing.
We have all this wonderful sunscreen. And, every time of the year, time of year when it gets stronger, you see those info commercials from the newscasters on the news sites, about the sun UV index and put your sunscreen on, wear the sunglasses, all that stuff. So, it's not their fault, but it is their problem. All right. It's not, it was never our fault, but we take the responsibility to learn, and it is our problem that we can fix. It's actually fixable. That's the greatest thing.
Yeah. And I'm honestly very optimistic, maybe more than most, because I just see how quickly people are just losing trust for the government and all of these three-letter agencies that are passing down all these guidelines, and they have all these lobbying interests with the drug companies we're talking about. People are slowly but surely losing trust for that and seeking better sources of information by following people on Instagram or podcasts
that's
instead
a
of the
good thing then.
news.
Yeah,
They're
we're
positive
getting
steps. Going on YouTube and finding a channel. These things that are not always 100%, as we talked about, but there are people that aren't connected to this monster that is very clearly trying to keep people sick.
And there's a vested interest in those monstrous companies because they're so huge, multi-billion, trillion-dollar companies, pharmaceutical companies. I don't know if you've ever seen that giant picture that's been on the web of all the major food companies. Pepsi, Cola, Coca, and all of the branches and micro branches and micro branches and and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all all the names of those companies when you look at it, and you realize the fingers, the tentacles, and how far they reach into our grocery stores and our everyday lives and our commercials, and we're getting sick. We're only living to 80. Which you watch Chafee. We're supposed to live longer than that.
We're supposed to be able to live to what did you say, 120 or 150 and be pretty healthy. Yeah. And not frail and dying.
Exactly.
Thriving till the very end. We're back in the way old times. The front lines of the armies were these 70, 80-year-old dudes who were killing it, and they were healthy and really just. They were the best warriors because they were the wisest and their bodies hadn't fallen apart. They were actually stronger and better warriors. So that is something that I think we can all agree. Let's bring that back to where it's not just this accepted norm that your body just starts falling apart after 40 or 50 or whatever year, we shouldn't be really having a bad time in our old years. We should be wiser and doing better in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And that line where a lot of people are sick for 20 years before they die. They're unhealthy and miserable, and they're a burden to their family for 20, 25 years in the old age home, whatever. And you don't want to get that way. You want to get all the way up to maybe the last 5 months of your life, and then whatever's happening, boop. It's a different line graph because most of your life you ate what our species is supposed to eat and thrive on. You've heard of that woman Maggie who lives in was it in Canada somewhere?
Rancher,
she's
Rancher Maggie.
She's isn't she 80 or something?
She's in her 80s,
and she looks like she's 45, 50 years. I mean,
she looks incredible, and she's so sharp,
and she's always so smart. Always and only eaten meat.
Yep, she's I think 40 years or 60 years strict carnivore. I forget the exact number, but many decades of strict carnivore, and she is absolutely killing it. And there are quite a few of them out there. Like, more and more of them are popping up on the podcast
We're
circuit.
finding them. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And someone just like, yeah, I just didn't like vegetables, so I just only ate steak for like my entire life.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know this was like now a thing that we're,
Yeah,
yelling about on the
there's
internet.
the 40-year carnivore. Have you ever heard of him? He's the
Yes,
40-year
yes.
carnivore, and I saw his interview with DC Learning to Live guy, and I was like, 40 years? Seriously? I think that beats a lot of everybody I've ever seen. And he did it just because he did everything they told him not to do.
Yeah.
He said, they
He was
told
just a
me,
rebel. Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, I'm going to just eat meat, way back when nobody was doing it. And
And
he's
he's doing
6'6".
great.
He did it during his growing years too. So he grew
Yeah.
up to be
And
tall and
that's
healthy.
crucial.
It
And that's
is.
crucial because so many of us, I feel like, sort of have this feeling inside. Like you said it, I'm feeling it, even though I'm only 29. Like we all wish we would have found this sooner.
Oh
And we
gosh. Yeah.
of course, like going even further back, like, man, it would have been really awesome if like my mom had been even doing this when she was pregnant with me and when I was like being raised as a young child. If I
What
would have
would we
been on
look
this,
like
I would
today? Yeah.
exactly. I could
Taller,
be taller,
muscular. Yeah.
stronger, like just thriving
Smarter.
even harder. So
Yeah.
like we have to like forgive those who were just doing their best, of
Well,
course, raising
yeah.
us, and all of our social connections, our friends, and all that stuff. It's in the past.
They don't
It's
know any
gotten
better.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and it's gotten me even more excited for the long-term future and optimistic because all of these people that are now learning this and figuring it out and unplugging from the matrix, they're going to be having kids in the next,
That's what it
several
is. It's
years and decades.
unplugging from the matrix, which is the
Yeah,
perfect,
and
perfect analogy. And
so
my
there's going to
God,
be
you're young. If I had found this at your age, when did you start this?
last year, like right before I turned 29, so
So
almost 30.
29. Oh God, you've got a
See,
better
exactly.
life ahead of you. See,
I
that's my
gotta love
question
what I
is
got.
I started at 53, 54. I'm almost 59 now. And I feel like I'm in my 20s again. Seriously, I am not exaggerating that at all. I'm out exercising and running and bicycling. And I used to have constant lower back pain. I had OCD. I had AFib. I had issues, man. It's all gone. It's all gone. And what would I be like if I started when I was 29? Would I be even better today? I don't know, but wish you
Yeah,
started sooner.
it's to me, it's
So I'm
just there's
grateful I
going to
have
be
started.
absolutely, and we all need to be grateful for just figuring it out
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
not stress about the past and just get excited for the future and building a future where more and more people will know this, as they're having kids and like raising these badass beasts for kids
Yeah.
because like we
Right.
need more
Yeah.
good, healthy young people who aren't just riddled with these chronic disease and obesity and diabetes from the birth basically now.
Yeah. I'm
And
watching
there's going to be a go ahead.
I'm watching a friend of mine that I used to teach with, and who's pretty morbidly obese, and his son is starting to become obese, and he's trying, not getting it, trying to explain, wants to listen, but then turns me off.
It's
And
so tough for
I'm
people.
thinking about this kid. I'm like, now's the time, start now. But then the kid's submerged in his world of
Yeah.
all the candy and the junk. When I was a kid, it was all about going to the corner store with money to get a bag of candy, ride to the park and sit on the swing set and eat all my candy. That's what my little brother and I used to do. I was a sugar junkie. I ate all the way up until my 50s, just desserts and sugar. I was worse than I think you were with just rice and bread. Bad.
I was never like a sugar junkie, but one of the things that was tricky was I always had something sweet after dinner. I always
I
had like
did
that
too.
after
Yeah.
dinner treat. I would always have like a bunch of Greek yogurt with strawberries and honey and hot
Something.
top and
Yeah.
like a
That
piece
was
of dark
healthier
chocolate.
than
Better
junk. Yeah.
better than what most people have.
Yeah.
It's not terrible, but it's a negative for your health.
Right.
So
And
I
it's
just
not
thought
needed.
like to
Yeah.
me, I'd rather thrive and have the most awesome life possible and be the healthiest I can be than enjoy a little bit of mouth pleasure for a few seconds. Just
Right
you know,
there. That's what
it's
got me is
mhm.
it's 6 or 7 seconds of pleasure versus, weeks of having to
Yeah.
deal with it,
And if you're looking at a long enough timeline, your whole life, like all these things add
and
up over a
they
lifetime.
add up.
So like it
Yeah.
really, every single choice you make about what you put in your mouth matters for your entire life.
It is. And it's a long-term, the decision that you put in your mouth is a short-term investment. It's a medium-term investment. That long-term investment is the one you just talked about for your life. And, we didn't, as a society, we just look at food, not me anymore, but I want that. It looks good. I want to try it. I'm not going to read what's in it. Oh, look at it's colorful. It satisfies me. It's in a package. I put the TV on with my remote, ice cream. A lot of people are just eating for pleasure. They're eating to quell an emotional event. They're eating because they're bored. They're eating because they're angry or they're hurt or they're sad. That's another part of eating too. People use it as a drug,
Yeah.
and they have to learn that they're doing that. And you're like, oh, I'm doing it for that reason. Got to get over that.
And understanding the difference between a craving and hunger is a
Right.
big
Which
one
you
for a
don't
lot of
know
people.
until you eat this way, what the
Yeah.
difference is. You
Hmm.
can tell the difference. Yeah.
Could you break that down real quick? And actually, before you do that, I just want to check to make sure. I forgot to ask you about time. Are you good on time for?
I'm good as long as you want to go. We're at an hour now, and I
Yeah,
have half a battery on my laptop, so I'm good.
perfect. We're good. Sweet.
A
Yeah,
little
break
longer.
down the difference between craving and hunger for us.
Well, from my understanding, a craving comes from addiction. Okay, your body wants something that it remembers having. It could be a physiological craving or an actual physical craving, like mine was with sugar. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine. They've proven that in rat studies and everything.
Often
They go
more.
for
I think the rats went
they
for the sugar
they
more
go
than the
they
cocaine when
go
they
for the
studied
sugar
it.
more than the cocaine.
Yeah.
Went for the sugar water, and so a lot of things that are proven in rats, we see a lot of connections in humans. And I can attest that I am a sugar addict. Hello, my name is John Laspina. I am a sugar addict. I admit it. I own it. And I have to abstain 100% all the time, even on my birthday, or else I go down that slippery slope of rationalizing and convincing myself to get at more of it because it's an addiction. So a craving often stems from addiction, not all the time, but often. You might crave salt, and that's kind of something different. That's part of hunger in my belief system, because your body needs salt. You feel like you want more salt on your meat. That's more of a hunger.
Yeah,
But
I
a
think that's part of the
craving
hunger side.
stems from addiction. Addiction is anything that you do usually to quell an emotional event, to get satisfaction, and it hurts you, but you keep doing it anyway, even though you see the damage, and you keep doing whatever you can to get at that, and it continues to hurt you. And then you feel like crap on the back end. I mean, that's addiction. And a lot of cravings, if you're craving a cigarette, if you're craving a drink of alcohol, if you're craving that can of Coca-Cola, that's a craving for a substance, and it's an addiction. Hunger comes from a hormone that we have called ghrelin. And the ghrelin sends a signal to the brain telling us it's time for nutrition. My body wants protein and fatty acids. It wants it, and it wants it now. Oh, it wants a little salt with that. Or, oh, it's too salt. I don't want that much salt. Like your body sends you these little micro signals telling you how you want your meat to taste, but it just basically tells you you're hungry. And then the other signal, the other side of the seesaw, is leptin with a P, leptin. And that tells you that, it's almost a nauseous feeling if you eat too much too fast. You're like, I can't eat anymore. I just can't. And these are hormones. And what people don't understand who eat all the sugar and the addictive stuff is they don't send that leptin signal to the brain. You can eat a ton, 3 bags of Doritos and lots of ice cream and Oreo cookies, and you never get that signal that you're full. Only fat and protein from animal products do that for you. So I know that was a longer answer than you wanted, but
That's
that's
great.
my
Yeah.
craving hunger explanation a little bit.
I think my TLDR, just the way that I look at it, is that craving is an emotional thing, and hunger is like your body's actual seeking nutrients.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
one of the things that's always eyeing me in this house that I'm living in right now is this big basket of fruit. I'm in Mexico, so there's like lots of like fruit all the
Yes,
time.
yeah.
and mangoes are always watching me as I'm cooking my meat. Like, oh God, I remember those mangoes. They taste
Yeah.
good, but the thing that I miss is that sugary rush, that taste of the sweetness just exploding in my mouth.
Yeah.
It's not, my body is not missing those nutrients because it doesn't have any nutrients that I'm not getting from meat. It
Right.
has nothing good for me. It has a bunch of fructose and fiber. Oh, we need to get into fiber, by the way. That's
Oh,
another
let's
one we
talk
got
fiber next.
to. We'll make that the next one. But it doesn't win you anything by eating that thing. It's only going to be a negative. So
It
I just
stimulates
realized,
more
you know what?
hunger, actually.
Hmm.
It makes
Exactly.
you want
Yeah.
more. Yeah, that's what it
So
does.
I just have to tell myself, like, and it's never like, we always
Not more
remember
hunger,
these
more
sweet
cravings.
things, you know. Of
Yeah.
course, like they're always going to be there, but they become so much more manageable.
Hmm.
And after a while, like, it does get easier. To the people who are struggling with the cravings, it certainly gets easier.
I tell
Um,
people that we have sugar-loving gut bacteria that are in there that we've been feeding. And when you stop
right.
feeding your sugar-loving gut bacteria, they rebel. They're looking for it. And you're going to have cramps and diarrhea and body aches for a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe.
I
It
actually
does
had
go
diarrhea for a little bit longer.
a
For
little
me, it was a
longer.
couple months,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was
It
actually
goes away,
surprised.
though,
Yeah,
eventually.
it,
Yeah.
it goes away for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's a little different, and that was actually
Everybody.
surprising for me because I only went from meat and fruit, but to meat. So I wasn't even going from like vegan to carnivore or anything.
You
So
had fruit, but did you cut out all the sugar like that? And that's why you
I
had the
was having
diarrhea?
honey with it, and
You were getting it. All right.
mhm.
All
Yeah.
right. Maybe
I think that's just
everybody's
an
different.
example where everybody
Yeah.
is a little different. You know,
Yeah.
those transition periods are just going to be different for everybody.
For
My
everybody.
friend who I did it with, he had crazy oxalate dumping. Like, he was
Oh,
waking up with like piles of dead skin in his bed every morning. And he was like, Ben, look at this. What the hell's going
he
on? And he
must have
didn't know what it was at
really
first. Yeah.
consumed a ton of it. Yeah. It
Hmm.
builds up. People don't
Yeah.
know that. Unlike many other toxins, which kind of either leave the body as you eat them or they chelate with selenium and other things that you eat, not oxalate. Oxalate,
Hmm.
there's a certain point in time, and when that time comes, it has to dump. And hopefully it can find some calcium to latch onto so it can come out of your poop. Otherwise, it's going to happen like your friend. It can come out of the skin, it can come out of your eye,
Yeah.
kidney stone, lots of places, and it's painful. And people can die from oxalate toxicity. That's all. And
Hmm.
you never hear these messages,
Yeah.
we've got to,
Those are all plants, people.
yep.
And
Plants are
just to those, I
trying to
can't remember
kill
if
you.
we like clearly mentioned this, but oxalate, that's a defense chemical that plants use to deter predators from eating it. So there's oxalates, there's lectins, phytates.
Right.
Oxalates is kind of the biggest one and the worst
That's
one,
the
I would
big
say.
one, and it's
Yeah.
a microscopic shard of glass type substance that actually in the plant it's shiny, and it reflects the light back onto the plant for greater photosynthesis, so the plant grows, and then it absorbs magnesium and potassium, and if there's any calcium, which there usually isn't in a lot of plants. So and then we eat it, and then it's also really sharp. So when the little bugs eat the plant, it breaks their little mouths up. It hurts them, and so it deters
Mm.
them. Now we're eating this crap, all right, and it's getting into the interstitial fluid around our organs and in our joints and everything. And then when it's time to leave, it's stripping your body because it's trying to bind with potassium and with magnesium and any calcium you have. And then it tries to move out. Hopefully you won't feel it, but many people, man, they have some really killer dumping episodes. I still am dumping every
Yeah, this could
5 or
take
6
years for
months.
people.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get this achy feeling that is not a sore throat. I don't have a cold. I don't have anything wrong. I know what it is. And it
Yeah.
only
Yes.
lasts 2 days and then it passes because I think I'm getting to the end of it.
Hmm.
But it was bad when I started. I could go on about this, and I've done interviews with people on oxalates, and that's what got me off the plants to begin with, was a
Yeah.
kidney stone. A lot of people need to get hit upside the head,
Yeah.
really violently to change. And mine was a kidney stone, because I have a
Yeah.
friend right now who's doing ketovore, but eats a ton of spinach and dark chocolate. And I said, you
Mm.
saw me when I had my kidney stone. Do you not understand this can happen to you? And they don't want to
Yeah.
hear it. I'm like, all right. And then I
Yeah.
know if it happens to them, they're going to be in my boat talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to clarify for people, that dumping is kind of the word we use for your
Yeah.
body cleansing these little shards of glass out that you've
Yeah.
been throwing in there. So
Yeah.
it's can often be an unpleasant experience, but it's your body's way of healing. It's cleaning
Yeah,
itself,
it is.
and you won't feel these things until after you stop eating those things, because then once you stop constantly stuffing it uh, in like seeds are the one that I always hear is the worst, and
Have a
that's
lot.
probably
Yeah,
contributed to yours because you ate a lot of seeds and that
I
caused your
did.
kidney stones. So all the people that are just having all these nuts and seeds are just, ugh, it makes me want to just grab them by the collar. And so once you stop eating those, your body finally says, finally, no more oxalates coming in. Now I can finally get rid of these things that are ripping me to shreds. And so it starts ejecting them in, all those different ways.
Whatever
And it can
fashion,
sometimes
right?
show up as like uncomfortable symptoms.
They can be.
And some people who have really heavy oxalate toxicity will want to like wean off a little bit. I've heard stories of some people that just have such bad dumping symptoms that they like sometimes need to go to the hospital.
If it's
And
super bad, and it's almost like go to the hospital bad, the advice is to actually consume a little
yeah,
bit of oxalate at that moment. Your body sees it and it stops the dumping,
yeah,
or it slows the dumping so it's
hmm
manageable, and then you stop it. And that's the
yeah,
advice if it's that bad.
just
Yeah.
as a way of like tapering off a little bit
Yeah.
more softly. I know that Sally Norton talks about that a lot
Yep.
because, sure, she doesn't want to be like held liable for anyone that
Well,
just
if you
freaking
tell people just
gets
go
wrecked in the
carnivore and
hospital
cut
by this.
everything out from the rest of your
Yeah.
life, a lot of people are going through what I went through, and they got a
hmm
kidney stone or something worse, something bad.
But
So
the kidney stone wasn't after you went carnivore. That was before and more of a
it was
red
before,
flag.
but it,
Okay.
it was, what I did was I went keto and I added more oxalate because the
That's
oxalate
right.
plants I was eating was just happened to be low. All I thought was it was about low carbs. That's all I
Yeah.
knew at the time, my knowledge base at the time. So that's why you have to get the whole picture.
Yeah.
I don't.
And
But if you go from the standard American diet, and like a lot of people suggest, just go carnivore for World Carnivore Month in January and just stop it all at once, that's bad advice. That's not the advice I give people. I tell people to
okay.
take the 30 days and slowly remove things to give your body, your sugar-loving gut bacteria, give your body a chance to adjust, or else most people will quit on day 6 because the effects are too strong for them. Not everybody, but a lot
Yeah.
of people. So I believe that just going, quitting and going into carnivore from day 31 to day 1 of the month is bad advice. I
Okay.
honestly believe you should give your body time and patience to slowly go through it. Otherwise, you could have a complication that's really bad. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I guess in my view, I guess it would just kind of depend on your personality
And
type and
yeah,
just your goals too. Because I've heard so many people, and this was what me and my friend did. We just said we're jumping all in. But to be fair, I already had cut out a lot of the poison at
you
that
had
point,
so
so
you
maybe
were
it's not
weaning
perfect.
already. Yeah.
But I do know some people that went from vegan to carnivore overnight and had no problems. A lot of people do that, and it's fine. Like, but just listen to your body and just take the course that you think is the
Yeah.
best. And the safer route would probably be to like wean
Ease
off
into it.
slowly over
Yeah.
time. If you're a crazy weirdo and just want to make it a full experiment and YOLO it, then see what happens. It's all an
Yeah.
experiment. You can,
Personality type is
yeah.
part of it. I do a Wednesday night with Carnivore Soldier. I don't know if you know who he is,
Oh
but
yeah, he's awesome.
yeah, his name's Larry, and
Mhm.
he's like, it's ones and zeros. Just do it. Just give it up, and that's his personality, and it
Yeah.
worked for him, and it works for a lot of soldiers and first responders because that's their personality. They embrace the suck. They just do
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
and
Push
and
through
they're
the pain.
successful. But there's a lot of people that aren't wired that way.
True.
There's
Yeah.
and so you have to find what works with your individual personality. So I have a little bit of his personality, but I also have a little bit of because I've had issues of the you should wean into it, wean off of it, ease into it. And then my audience needs to hear both stories. Which one are you? So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And that's great advice for people that are thinking about doing this. I really like that. I'm glad we could add that in there. All right. Let's talk about fiber. It's one of
all
the things that
right,
we mentioned there. So I know that
yeah,
this is one that we have been told about forever. I remember seeing all the cereal boxes because I had my cereal and my soy milk every morning and going to school, and it says fortified with fiber or just has fiber. I can't remember,
right,
but they're always really
yeah,
throwing fiber out there as like this
yeah.
very positive thing. So, what is fiber? why do we not need it at all, and why is it actually a negative for
All
people?
right. And if fiber is controversial, and I'll tell you why as I get to it. Fiber is bulk. It has no protein. It has no fatty acids. It has no vitamins. It has no minerals. What the hell is fiber? Fiber's sawdust. Okay, fiber is just bulk, and it's in plant matter and in plants and fruits. And in the fiber is locked away amongst the fiber are minerals and vitamins, but they're locked into the fiber. So the fiber itself is not contain it, but it's locked in there. And when we human beings with our 1.5 pH extremely acidic stomach acid eat fiber, goes through there, does nothing to the fiber. It has to go through our entire small intestine and out of our colon, and it's unchanged, totally unchanged, and nothing was extracted from it. And then we have this gigantic bowel movement. And most humans on the planet Earth are having big bowel movements and a lot of gas because fiber will start to ferment inside the gut as well. And so you get bloating and a lot of pretty bad smelling flatulence. When you go carnivore and you're eating only animal products, that 1.5 pH stomach acid is breaking down the meat, it's liquefying it. The bile that the liver makes comes out of the duct and breaks it so that the intestines can absorb the fatty acids, the vitamins, the mineral, everything gets absorbed. And then there's very little waste that's going to come out, gristle, whatever it is. And then you have a very small bowel movement that should be soft, and you don't have to go every day, and there's no fiber in it. So fiber, in my opinion, is not essential. We do not need fiber. Now, the devil's advocate, the other side is you will hear that certain fiber from certain plants are essential because they contain and feed certain gut bacteria that are good for our immune system, because most of our immune system is supposed to be in our gut. So there's your controversy. And we're doing a lot of research about it, and there really is not a lot of knowledge out there for anybody to find on the subject. So we're all in the discovery stage about that kind of fiber. What I do know is that woman living in Canada who's 80, who's been eating carnivore for over 40 years, and the 40-year carnivore, they're not having any gut problems, any immune system problems, or any bowel problems, and they have had no fiber all those years. Kelly Hogan hasn't had fiber in over 10 years. I haven't had fiber in over 1 year. So I'm doing great. And another rabbit hole is bowel movements and constipation. We could go down that rabbit hole if you want. But that's basically, fiber is bulk, and we push it through and we don't need it. It's not essential.
Yeah, and I think that something that should really be underlined here is the fact that when you're farting a lot, that is a signal from your body that it doesn't like what's in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just, and it's funny because when you look at the culture side, I grew up in Seattle, so there's tons of plant-based propaganda everywhere. Like I dated girls that were vegan, and a bunch of my friends were vegan and vegetarian, and farting is literally like a part of life everywhere you go. People are just farting. People are just farting, and everyone laughs like, ah. It's like this funny thing, and it's goofy and it stinks and whatever. And you can just kind of like accept like, oh, everyone farts, like there's no problem. But it's not actually a good. It's a bad sign if you're farting.
It's not normal. Now there's gas when you swallow air when you're eating. There's that kind of fart.
Yeah.
And then there's the kind of fart you're talking about, which
clears the room.
It's created in the gut because you're fermenting all that fiber, and it's just like like gurgling, bubbling gas that has to get out. It's an awful feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the frequency of poop too. And
right.
Vegans are all about, oh, like I've seen some tweets even by people who are sort of in the, the eat some fruit camp, who are saying like, oh, you should be pooping multiple times a day every day to be healthy. And that's not correct.
John Harvey Kellogg, right? It was all about, enemas and getting the stuff out and the frequent bowel movements. And It's crazy.
That is literal waste. So if you're, I mean, that's our body's way of ejecting waste. It is for
Right.
every animal.
It
So,
is.
like, when you're just constantly ejecting waste all the time, it's probably a sign that the thing you're putting in the front end is too wasteful.
It's not getting absorbed by the body. You don't
Exactly.
absorb anything from it. And, people, what the vegans, I don't know why they don't understand this one point. This one point. Forget all the, oh, you're killing the animals and they're torturing. The point they will not fixate on or even look at is the bioavailability of nutrition that you don't get from plants. 10 to 15% of the vitamins and minerals and protein that you get, they have to eat so much constantly, frequently, and they're still malnourished. Whereas we just have a steak and it's 98% bioavailable protein, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. And then we don't have much waste because our body's absorbing all of that.
Yep.
And that's a basic fact that they won't look at.
Mm-hmm.
But our way of eating is the proper, ancestrally appropriate way of eating. It is.
And it'll fluctuate a little bit, of course, but I think I only really need a number 2 every 2 or 3 days right now.
Me too.
Like it's super rare, and that is literally because all the food practically that you're eating is being absorbed by your body and being used to build a stronger body. And this is why carnivores notice these differences that happen to them all over the place. Like my skin has improved. I used to have a bunch of weird like acne spots on my arms right here.
Yeah.
And my hair has gotten thicker. And my skin across my body has gotten nicer. The whites of your eyes get whiter.
Right.
All this stuff starts happening.
You see
it's
clearer.
like,
everything.
Yeah. People's vision are improving. I've seen people who threw their glasses out after they went carnivore because they could see better. How crazy is that? That's wild.
Amazing.
My
it's like
asthma went
it's
away.
Like a wonder drug. Like, what is this snake oil this guy is selling, and how much does it cost? Hey, it's free. It's called knowledge.
My asthma went away. I had asthma as a kid.
Did you?
And I needed to have an inhaler with me. I threw that shit out.
I
don't need it
was allergy
anymore.
related, and you didn't even know it. Yeah, you were allergic to something.
It's funny you mentioned allergies because that is the one thing I'm still battling. I'm still a little stuffed up, and that's been like my nemesis my whole life.
You know what the allergen might be? Is it in the air? Is it pollen?
Who knows?
Your allergy?
It could be.
Oh,
yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, I will absolutely say that there's been so many benefits. Nothing's gotten worse. Literally can't think of a single thing that's gotten worse.
Better. Yeah.
And sometimes there are things that are more difficult than others to beat over time, of course. And for me, it's allergies. Everyone has their own thing, but it's just been an incredible transformation.
It's great. I'm glad you found it at a young age.
Yeah. And that's just your body, getting no more toxins coming in through your mouth.
This is how we're supposed to be feeling. This is how we're supposed to be. We were never supposed to be that way before.
Yeah.
That became normal and accepted.
But John, what about my cholesterol though, man?
Oh, Ben, man, you're going to die of a heart attack. You know that your cholesterol. I don't know about you, but my cholesterol is 390 and it was 412 last year. My LDL, right? But my HDL is 65, almost 70, which is pretty high. My triglycerides are down in the 30s. I had a CAC score, which is a 0. And my HbA1c was 4.8. I'm at 5.1 now. So I am fine with that wonderful LDL making my bile, feeding my testosterone, nourishing my brain, making my vitamin D. I want that cholesterol. Because I know that and I have to say this with this caveat, because I know my other markers, it has to be in context. My other markers are really good. So high LDL, everybody needs to know this. And, don't eat Oreo cookies now, but high LDL is not bad if it's in context with other healthy blood markers. And the doctor still wants me on the statin. And everybody's taking the statin. President Biden's, he went to the doctor, and on TV they listed all his drugs he was taking, and he's on a statin, right? And I feel like saying, Mr. President, get off the statin. Because you don't want to lower LDL. High LDL is actually good as you age. The lower cause mortality.
And the hormonal side is huge. Like you need cholesterol for hormones. And this is another benefit that I've had is that like my libido is higher than it's ever been
Oh,
before.
watch out,
It's
29-year-old.
I'm telling you, like, if any dudes out there or women, like, I mean, talk about women hormonally, they're so much more complex. So when you're throwing
Oh, yeah, they
toxins
are.
into that
Yeah,
mix,
yeah,
causes all kinds of havoc. So, like, you're gonna feel just like this is honestly one of the biggest differences I felt. It's really hard to articulate, but just my drive for life and like my
yep.
motivation to change the world and just build shit that makes change and helps people has never been higher. And that really I felt that difference right after I started this diet, and
Yeah,
that is just a sign that your testosterone
yeah,
has been significantly boosted.
if
I
you
don't
did
know
a
what else
before and
would.
after blood test, it'd be interesting to see how much your testosterone went up.
I've never done a blood test.
I know, but it'd
I've
be
done it like
interesting.
years ago, but like I'm kind of
It-
in the just like listening to my
yeah, I
body
know.
camp. Like
Yeah,
I do sort of wish I would have done it before, so I'd have before and
just so
after
you
to
know, a
be like
reference
a piece
point.
of data, But
Yeah,
I'm much more of a like listen to yourself and just how you feel kind of person. And
absolutely.
of course, like all the people are like, "Oh, you check your blood work. This is going to be so scary." Like, there's
I do
no
it once a
way
year. I
that
do
your
it once a year
body
because
would be.
I like to see I like to see where I was before and where I am, and I want to
Mhm.
continue to move on. And I chose to have a CAC score, coronary artery calcium score, because I'm in my upper 50s, and I wanted to validate that my high cholesterol was not harming me with all these other markers and context. And it isn't. It's proof that I
Yeah,
have no plaquing in my arteries. I'm going to continue to eat as much fatty red meat as I can get my hands on when I'm hungry. I'm good to go.
yeah, absolutely. I love that, and it's just that cholesterol thing is just become such a fixture in
Yeah,
people's
it is.
fear brains, and this was a big one that Nina Teicholz talked about in her book, The Big Fat Surprise, which I had her on. I think it was like episode 7 or something, and man, that is the book to look at if there's anyone still holding out on being scared about cholesterol because the there is such a fiasco of scientific fraud that led
I
up to
know.
that.
Yeah.
It's a whole book where it's like 2 inch thick book basically explaining how exactly we got there. But the bottom line is cholesterol is good for you.
Yeah.
You want to
Our
consume
body would not
cholesterol.
be making it, right? It would
Yeah,
not be making it on demand. Okay, just like pancreas makes insulin on demand and the liver, gluconeogenesis, makes glucose on demand. Our body is making, our liver and actually our brain makes it too. Different parts of our cells make cholesterol on purpose for a reason. Why the hell are we taking a pill to bring it down to under 100? Because of everything in that book that you're talking about. It's
yeah.
crazy. It's insanity, you
And
know?
because statins are just like a bazillion-dollar
Yeah.
industry, I think that's one
It's
of the most profitable
money,
drugs out
money.
there.
Yeah, it's
So
all about that.
that's
Follow
why
the
there's
money.
so much messaging that
Yeah.
cholesterol is bad. I mean, they're not just going to come out and say on TV. Well, sometimes they do, I guess, but it's the
Yeah.
messaging isn't going to start with like you need to take this drug, you need this drug. No, they go deeper than that. They plant the seeds much deeper of like, oh, you should be scared of cholesterol and scared of the meat and like all the little things that you need to be scared of in order for
Hmm.
them to then sell you that product and convince you you need it.
And here's this
So they've
pill.
done an
Yeah.
extremely comprehensive job over the decades planting
Decades.
those seeds of the in the big pharma marketing department, which they have the best of the best because they have so much money from all this lobbying and all this corruption. They have infinite money to just infiltrate the airwaves from every single angle, and that's why all of us have been tricked by it. Like since we were born, basically, all like none of us just came out of the womb and were like asking the tough questions because we
They're
just
putting
it's
kids
not how
on
we are, you
on
know?
statins now. They're actually
Yeah,
putting children on statins
yeah,
because they're testing their blood. And as long as it makes them money, follow the money, and there's corruption
yeah.
almost always. Terrible.
It's just
And our health is at
bonkers.
risk because of all of this.
Mhm. Next one. Does eating fat make you fat? This should be a quick one. Why do people think that dietary fat makes
Yeah.
them fat?
Because the message has been out there all this time: low fat, eat low fat, low calories, low fat, count your calories. And um, we talked about fat. Fat is nutrition. Fat satiates. In fat is a lot of vitamins and minerals and essential, the amino acids that make the protein are in the fat as well. We need fat. So fat doesn't translate to fat on the body. What makes fat on the body is de novo lipogenesis. That's when the liver sees too much carbohydrates and sugar. It can't get it into the cells. It stores a little bit in your muscles and liver as glycogen, but that's full. So what does it have to do? It has to convert the rest into fat cells to store around your liver first, other organs second, and then it spills over into your tongue, your cheeks, and everything third. That's where the fat comes from our body. It comes from sugar and carbs being converted. It doesn't come from the fat that we eat. And it's understandable because you're like, well, it's fat. This is fat and this is fat. Well, it's not the same way that it gets there. So how do we fatten up cattle for slaughter? We feed them grain.
Yeah.
And we fatten them up, and then we kill them, and it's bigger and fatter and tastier and meatier. Same thing for us. How do they get goose liver pate? They fatten up the goose with sugar and grains, and then they kill the goose, and you get this fatty liver, and they mix it up and they make a pate out of it. We are the same thing. We eat carbs and sugar, and we're fattening ourselves up for slaughter. Crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's
I
my
completely
answer.
agree with that. And it's crazy when you go to a zoo and you see a sign that says, "Don't feed the lions a salad." Don't like
Yeah.
toss a fruit at the lion because
They
they're
know.
carnivores. They're not
Yeah.
supposed to eat that.
Right.
And yet humans are just fed this stuff constantly. So
Right.
we're treating the zoo animals better than the actual human beings around us. It's just wild. Cool. That was an easy one. Next one.
Yeah, that
Next
was
question.
easy. Give me another easy one.
We're in speed mode now.
All right.
We're chopping these down. So
All right.
here, actually, you know what? I've got two left. There
All
are
right.
two of these that I think are great. I think we could finish this after two more. So
All right.
the second to last one I have here. How, John, could every one of these smart doctors and nurses and dietitians and medical practitioners have gotten this so wrong? Like, it just seems crazy that all my doctors have told me this thing. How could they all be wrong and these weird internet people be correct? That just doesn't make sense. They're professionals. They were educated on this, right?
Yeah. Well, Ben, they were taught it by their professors in college, and it's the standard education. They get 2 days of nutrition in their entire 4 years of medical training, and they are taught how to find the problem and how to treat it with a medicine. Okay, doctors never ask us, what is your diet? Which should be the first question of every medical practitioner when you go into their examination room. But it's not. What are your symptoms? Okay, let me take out my pad and give you a prescription. And then they, of course, a lot of times get a kickback from the pharmaceutical companies for prescribing it. So a lot of them don't know any better. And my advice that I got from Dr. Ken Berry is find a younger doctor. The younger doctors are more apt to listen to you and ask you questions and be a little more understanding about diet, nutrition, and your way of eating. The older ones tend to be set in their ways a little bit more. So the doctors are just doing what they were taught.
And that aligns with my own experience too. Like the younger doctors I had, I wasn't smart enough at that time to really like throw the hard questions at them, but they were just more, I mean, they're less brainwashed because they've had less years in that system of like just diagnosis drug, just like needing drugs for everything. And I really just feel like I'm going to throw a shout out to my millennial generation here. I feel like the millennials and Gen Z are just really fed up with having a bad system in place that's not helping people. And they're really just more interested in bucking that system themselves. And a lot of these doctors are too. There's tons of doctors popping up all over the place. And they tend to be, like, I mean, Ken Berry and Chafee are both like in their 50s and 40s, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I haven't seen that many older than that. Maybe Robert Kilt. So, there's of course exceptions, but to your point, like the younger ones out there, I think have more energy to really find the root problems.
They're still learning themselves. They haven't stopped. And what Dr. Berry says, doctors are just dudes and chicks. And when you go into the office, seriously, when you go into the office, I go in now, and maybe because I'm older, I don't know if I had this confidence when I was younger. I go in there confident with vocabulary. I know what labs I want. I know what to tell him what to discuss with him. My doctor listens to me, at least. He's young and fit, by the way, my doctor. But you need to go in with confidence. A lot of people see this doctor, they put him up on a pedestal because he's wearing a white lab coat with a stethoscope, and he's God. He knows everything, and I know nothing. That's how it's always been. And we need to go in there. You know, we've got the internet. We've got the same knowledge base, more than they had because they went to school. We've got it all. If you just do a little research, you have access to so much knowledge. And you can go in there and hold your own and have a good discussion with your doctor. All right. It's not really that much knowledge you need either about nutrition. Some just basic points, right?
Yeah.
For nutrition.
Yeah. And those doctors like, you know, Dr. Chafee and Ken Berry, and they will attest completely that, like, oh yeah, like I was completely stuck in the system at one point too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Chafee ever really was, but Ken Berry definitely was, where he says like, yeah, I was giving people bad advice. I was just prescribing pills, and I wish I would have told them more about diet, but that was just what I was taught. And so
he apologizes to all of his people on YouTube every day. I'm so sorry.
Which is why he's so awesome, because he's so like genuine and transparent, and he just wants the best for people. And there are more and more doctors coming out that way, and I'm really optimistic about it. I see a trend in a very healthy direction. While there are a lot of trends in a negative direction, there's a very optimistic one in these new independent creators coming out of the woodwork and just saying it like it is, like Ken Berry.
We need more of them. We need more of them.
Yeah.
And thanks to social media and YouTube, you know, we're getting more out there. So hopefully they won't. And
folks like us who aren't doctors either. We're still we're still out there getting it out there. I think we deserve a pat on the back for that, because we're at least helping get more info.
We are arms of them. They taught us, and now we're doing it as well, which is kind of what they encouraged me to do a long time ago. When I first listened to them, they said, "What are you doing to make a ripple in that pond?" I'm like, well, I'm going to start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You know, I got to help somebody. And people have commented that they learned stuff from me. So it's like, as a teacher, that just rings all my bells, you know?
Absolutely. And you have there's no ceiling on how many people you can reach on places like YouTube or Twitter or these platforms, where it's really exciting, because when you are working in a classroom, you're always going to be capped at that number of bodies you have in a room. But on the internet, the only limit is your imagination and your ability to market yourself and, you know, just create awesome content that gets people results. And that's a whole nother side of it, is that when you scroll through Dr. Chafee or Ken Berry's comments, it's just thousands of people saying, like, you saved my life.
Right.
Like, my doctor that I went to said I needed to do this surgery or take all these drugs. And I just watched your video, and I fixed my problem without needing any of that.
Isn't that amazing?
So thank you.
Even if you just saved one life or helped one person, it makes all of that worth it. And they've been helping thousands and thousands of people.
It's so awesome. They're just legends. Yeah. All right. Got one more question for you, John. Last question. Let's finish this baby off. I was scrolling through your YouTube channel earlier when I was getting ready, and one of the videos I thought was a great one we could sort of take this off into the sunset with here. And the title of it was "Repair the Roof When the Sun is Shining." And I really love that analogy, because I think when people have a really rough disease of some sort, some autoimmune condition that's kicking their ass daily or weekly, they are put in a state of desperation where they're just willing to sort of cling on to all these things. And that's why we hear a lot of those stories of people like Michaela Peterson, who had horrible arthritis and autoimmune conditions when she was younger. And so she was just desperate, and she tried eating all meat, and it fixed it. And so a lot of those people, no matter what they're dealing with, they find their way into this out of just like desperation for an answer. But there's a ton of other people out there who are just sick enough or just unwell enough to where they're not at their highest potential, and they don't even know it, because it's not like very acute problems. You know what I mean? So I think that this analogy is great for those people. Repairing the roof when the sun is shining. Could you tell us a little bit about that and why everyone should think that way when they're looking at their health?
Sure. I heard that. All my ideas for my videos, I get from hearing it from somebody else. I pick something out of one of their talks and go, wow, I have an epiphany. And I turn on my mic and I say it and I save it for later for a future video. And that was one of them. So I put a little picture of the roof, right?
Yep.
And, you're in your house and you're getting the mop, you're mopping up the water off the floor. And then, you're not fixing the roof. You just keep mopping the floor. You're just going to keep mopping that floor over and over again. And that's what people are doing with medicine. With most of their ailments, is they're taking medicine every time it comes up and it's covering over the symptoms and the problems, and you're not going at the root of the problem, fix the roof, and then you don't have the water on the floor. Find the root of the problem, which we've been talking about for all this time, and that is diet. It's nutrition. And there's so many toxins in standard world diet food and plant food that everybody's different, and people are having these reactions. And it's just so cloudy. You can't find where the doctors can't find what's causing this, but they know a medicine that will smother over, 80% of the symptoms and make you feel better, and you have to pay for it and be on it for the rest of
side effects that need more
and
medicine.
side effects and more medicine, and you have to be on this drug for the rest of your life. And finding the root cause is diet related. 99 so I don't know what the percentage, but it's so big that if you can fix your diet, eat what is ancestrally appropriate for the human being, the body starts to repair from the inside out. And whatever that person's issue is, they will notice if it doesn't completely disappear, the symptoms will minimize so small that they're manageable, and you don't need to be on medicine. So that's kind of what I meant by that analogy is, fix the roof instead of continuing to mop the floor every time it rains, because you're going to continue to have to deal with that.
And do it before there's a hurricane.
And especially before there's a hurricane. I live in Florida, so we make sure everything's prepped before June 1st.
and the analogy for that would be like, what if you just, one day you just have cancer, or you get diagnosed with diabetes, or something just smacks you in the face, or a kidney stone, like you said.
It's gonna, your immune system is so low at that point. Cancer is just grabbing a hold and feeds off of what?
Sugar and carbs. Yeah.
Glucose and glutamine is the fuel for most cancer cells, and cancer does not like ketones. It doesn't use ketones as a fuel. There's a doctor, and I can't remember his name, Dr. something Berg. And he wrote this, he's one of the older guys that's with us. And it's all about cancer. That could be a whole nother talk on how.
Otto Warburg?
Well, that's the original guy that he uses, that he cites. The Warburg effect is the cells and the cancer and the glucose. But I can't remember the name of the doctor that's talking about it. He's alive. He has all these wonderful YouTube videos about it. And I was glued to them. And I thought, man, I feel armed and ready. If I ever get any kind of cancer, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. Right? I am going to continue doing what I'm doing.
Too.
Yeah.
I feel damn confident that I've crossed that off the list of possibilities for myself.
You're probably preventing it now.
Sugar.
Exactly. But if something ever grabbed a hold of you, that's where you want to do more long-term fasts for that autophagy. And I'll tell you, there are so many stories of stage 4 cancer victims who are no longer, they're in remission permanently because they didn't feed the cancer with glucose.
Yeah.
So there's just amazing info. There's so much info out there that's working.
And just like every other one of these diseases we've talked about, there's more and more younger and younger people getting cancer.
They are.
We're still fed this narrative that it's just genetics. Well, no, genetics don't just decide to throw everyone under the bus out of nowhere. There's something else going on here. And this is actually, I think, another one of your video titles, which I love, is, and I've heard this before too, so I really like it. Our genes load the gun, our lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And that is huge because, like we were just talking about, the reason why cancer is so rampant is because the consumption of all this sugar is rampant. That's the fuel to the cancer. So this is like, some of us may have a certain genetic predisposition that makes us more vulnerable to it. But if we don't fill our bodies with the junk that feeds those problems, you're in great shape. You're still going to be a minuscule percentage of chance. You're pretty much set.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm at. Like, I feel like I don't need any sugar, and I'm like, this is a way of life for me now. I'm just going to be eating meat the rest of my life.
Me too. And we
So I don't have to
probably won't.
so I
Yeah,
don't
we
have to
won't
worry
get
about
cancer. Yeah,
diabetes or cancer or
absolutely.
any of these things, because it's practically impossible.
Practically impossible. Now, the
So,
guy's name was Dr. Thomas Seyfried. Seyfried,
oh
for
yeah,
those
of course.
anybody who wants to look him up.
Yeah,
Seyfried. He is. You'll be glued when you watch his videos. You're like, that is fascinating about cancer and
yeah,
glucose. Wow. So yeah, if, let's say you get it though. We feel like we have the knowledge and we're armed to fight it more than like my mother. She had bladder cancer and she kept eating the same sugar and junk until the day
same with
she
my
died. She
grandpa, colon
smoked.
cancer. Hmm.
She wouldn't stop smoking, you know. And if you have the knowledge, you apply it. Hopefully you and I, we're going to be doing great. I will see you when I'm 120. What will you be? Let's see. You'll be 100 when I'm,
Yeah,
or
I
not.
mean,
You'll be 90 when
the
I'm
more years that
120.
go by, the closer we will be.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll be at the centurion. What's the word?
Yeah.
Centurion carnivore party where we're all over 100 and just
Oh
kicking
yeah.
ass. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
And so remember,
I'm just so hopeful for the amount of people that are coming to this diet and finding this way of eating and just changing their lifestyle. It leads to so many other lifestyle changes because we realize everything we thought was right was a lie. So it just leads to more
yeah,
questions and more zest for life and more learning. And these people are just all upgrading themselves. I've never seen a carnivore that didn't just upgrade
I
themselves in
like
every
that
way and just
phrase. That's
continue
that
to grow.
movie. You ever see that movie where the guy gets an upgrade and they put this thing in his head? I
No.
don't know if you ever saw that movie. It's a really cool movie. But yes, we upgraded ourselves. We
Yeah.
have a newer version of ourselves. That's actually part of my phrase. Eat well so that you can look well and become the optimized version of yourself. That phrase, I heard somebody say it a long time ago, and I'm like, that's my motto. Become the optimized version of yourself. And it's true. It really is. I believe in it so wholeheartedly. So glad you're on the same page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
John Laspina, aka the Carnivore
All
Teacher, has
right,
been
Ben. Yeah.
so wonderful chatting with you today, sir. I'm really glad we got to go through all those and glad your laptop was able to hang in there for
Yep.
us.
We're good. Can I tell people where they can find my channel before my battery runs out?
Give
Here?
us everything. Give us all the links,
All right.
brother.
So if you want to watch any of my stuff, if you want to, and subscribe, which would be cool, because I lost my previous YouTube channel. I had
Oh, no.
3,000 subscribers. I now have 400. So, but anyway, I started over.
Hopefully
Who
this
cares?
helps.
I had everything saved on the hard drive. I'm reloading everything up there again.
Smart.
Just look up Carnivore Teacher, and you could type in 1965, which is my birth year. It comes up. And I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitter, which is X. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Threads, and I'm on LinkedIn. So you can.
You got the whole gambit.
I put all my videos. Anytime I put a video out, it goes into one of this because I have different audiences actually from each one. People who are only on Instagram, that's the only time they see me. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Who's my Facebook follower? Who's my Instagram follower? So that's where you can find me. And thank you for this opportunity to share and get the message out once again, because we can never say it enough.
That is the truth, and I'm really looking forward for people to seeing this. I'll make sure to get over your way too,
All
so we
right.
can spread it far and wide, my friend.
All right,
Have
I
a good one.
appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
coming by. See you later.
Take care.